𝘈𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤. The only hotel we stayed at for 2 nights. Another breakfast here, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. The first thing I went for that morning was the honeycomb. Clearly, everyone else had the same idea because it was almost gone. Here's my plate for the day. Simple but enough to keep me going. The sweet preserved plums paired perfectly with the plain yogurt. I'd happily have it every morning if I could. Coffee was Italian standard coffee. Bon appetit! At the entrance, you'll spot 3 colored bins lined up like Mario's warp pipes. We lined our suitcases neatly here for the driver to load them into the bus. Fingers crossed his bag's okay after lifting all of them. Thank you, Mr. Driver. Time to check out. Thank you for the hospitality, 𝑖'𝑏 Styles. Today we headed for the heart of Italy, Assisi, to visit the sacred convent of St. Francis. The ride took around 3 hours, with breaks along the way. St. Francis is one of Assisi's 2 patron saints. Born into privilege, he gave up his wealth to follow God's call to rebuild his church, living a life of poverty and humility. At that time, the church had grown decadent and complacent, so Francis' radical devotion was shocking to many. He was ridiculed by family, friends, and even the church. After a period of intense prayer and fasting, he had a vision of the 6-winged seraph at San Damiano that led him to be the first recorded person to receive the stigmata. Despite no formal religious education, his dedication inspired many, leading to the creation of the Franciscan Order, a brotherhood devoted to love, service, and humility. Today, he's one of the most venerated figures in Catholic history. He's also known as the Seraphic Saint and the patron saint of ecology and animals for his profound love of nature and animals. As we neared town, the basilica came into view. It is the most prominent landmark in Assisi. With over 1 million visitors annually, it's the most visited site in the region. Nearby stands the Basilica of St. Clare, dedicated to Assisi's other patron saint. Sadly, we couldn't visit it this time around, but hopefully on another trip. Compared to Rome, the architecture here feels like it's straight from a medieval storybook. The narrow, hilly streets winding through valleys and olive groves, offering beautiful scenery before we arrived. We stopped at the town's designated parking spot and admired the preserved medieval structures. The massive gates, narrow windows, and watchtowers spoke volumes about the craftsmanship of the time. It truly felt like we were stepping back centuries in history. From here, we walked through this short uphill stroll of 5 to 10 minutes to reach the town center. Small climb and pretty easy. Now we can look at the basilica from another angle. It looks like 2 different buildings stacked together. The entire town itself is a harmonious patchwork of styles with a warm, earthy tone. This is the gate to the town. Entering through this gate felt like walking into a charming medieval castle town. A town on top of a hill, surrounded by the castle wall. Very much a fantasy novel setting. The uneven windows that have been patched over centuries showed the limitation of those days and highlighted the raw beauty of medieval architecture that has lasted the tests of time. But in my own opinion, the most charming part of it all was the masonry. It didn't come in a standard size, yet it was tidily arranged. Close up, you can see how well the brick and stone masonry were put together. Before heading to the basilica, we were advised to have an early lunch in the town, as we won't have time once we entered the basilica. Sadly, many eateries were closed that Thursday morning. We decided to have lunch here, one of the few cafes that was open that day. It was a really small cafe that served quick and simple dishes. Some of the foods offered were flatbread, lasagna, a wide variety of cannoli, cookies, strudels, scrolls, pies, tarts, and other pastries. There were handmade dried pasta for sale too. The options were mostly sweet treats, so we picked the only two savory dishes they had, the flatbread and lasagna. We also tried their sfogliatella, called lobster here due to its lobster tail shape, but the shell was pretty tough and the filling was really sweet. I unfortunately didn't find it enjoyable at all. Well, it is what it is. Bon appetit! After that, we headed to the basilica. Passing through the gate, we were welcomed by a large plaza leading into the basilica complex. The Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi consists of two churches, the lower basilica and the upper basilica. The basilica was built directly over St. Francis' burial site, so we first descended into the crypt to pay our respects at his tomb. Sadly, photography and recording are strictly prohibited. All I can say is the interior had been dimly lit, making it difficult to fully appreciate the intricate murals on its walls and ceilings. After our time in the crypt, we stepped out into a quiet courtyard. Nearby was a gift shop and another staircase that led us upward toward the upper basilica. No cameras were allowed here either. Emerging into the open upper ground, we were greeted by a vibrant green lawn with a perfectly trimmed hedge in the shape of a tall cross. This symbol was used by Saint Francis as his personal signature and seal, and it has since become a symbol of conversion and commitment in the Catholic faith. From here, it's clear how much higher the upper basilica sits compared to the lower one. Its interior is spacious and filled with natural light, streaming through its many windows. A direct staircase from the plaza below leads up here. The sweeping views of the Umbria region and the medieval hill town are absolutely breathtaking. The iconic rows of arches encircling the courtyard only add to its majesty. The entry point to the basilica is here. A public restroom is just above the ramp. After taking our time enjoying the scenery, we made our way back down to rejoin the rest of our group. Looking up from below, the climb looked pretty steep. We were scheduled to attend Mass in a chapel adjacent to the basilica, so we waited patiently for our turn, soaking in the peaceful atmosphere of this sacred place. Might as well taking a few pictures here. Soon we entered through the gate. The ancient walls were constructed with massive, irregularly shaped stone bricks. The cracks and discoloration revealed their age, a natural mark of time and weathering. The chapel was located deep within the building, so we had to pass through several doors and corridors. Eventually, we emerged into an open courtyard, lined with decorated colonnades. After passing one more doorway, we finally reached the chapel. Upon entering, we were greeted by a statue of Saint Anthony of Padua, a revered Catholic saint portrayed holding the infant Jesus, a symbol of his deep devotion and spiritual connection to Christ. We took our seats and quietly prepared ourselves for Mass. The interior walls were adorned with ancient murals, depicting scenes from the crucifixion to the life of Saint Francis. Time to start our Mass. During the service, we solemnly listened to the Gospel readings and the homily. Later, we joined the procession and received our communion bread. This was when we received the communion bread. And finally, the end of our Mass. The Mass concluded with hymns and prayers. Before leaving, we took a group photo and a short video clip to commemorate our visit. Thank you for the beautiful and meaningful experience. We then took another one in front of the basilica. Afterwards, we made our way back to the bus, taking in the charming scenery one last time. We walked downhill to the parking area. There it was, our trusty blue bus. Goodbye, Assisi. Thank you for your warm hospitality. Next, we headed to Pisa. The drive from the basilica took about 3.5 hours. It had been a long, eventful day, so our tour guide kindly let us rest and enjoy the quiet ride. Along the way, I spotted a contrail streaking across the sky, a bright, slender line against the clear blue backdrop, like a needle threading through the heavens. That evening, we had dinner at a Chinese restaurant in Pisa. The place was pretty big, that it fit many of 10-seater round tables. As usual, there were more tables than walking space. A typical traditional Chinese restaurant you'd find anywhere in the world. Our group's meal had been pre-ordered, consisting of 6 dishes. Beef stir-fry, thinly sliced beef with onion and green capsicum. Braised beef, chopped beef in a savory traditional sauce. Crumbed chicken, crispy chicken tempura on a bed of lettuce. Garlic stir-fried cabbage, simple but could use more seasoning. Plain omelette, always a reliable comfort dish. Chicken corn soup, hearty and semi-thick traditional soup. While the food was true to the basics of Chinese cuisine, I wished for bolder flavors. Still, after a long day, we were grateful for the warm meal. Bon appetit! Afterwards, we found out that our bus driver received a parking fine that evening. Finding a spot for a 45-person bus in Pisa's narrow streets wasn't easy. We waited patiently on this spot until he returned, then continued to our lodging for our much-needed rest. 다음 금이 𝘋𝙤𝙤𝙤